Have you ever looked back on the stuff you liked as a kid and realized there's a lot of subtext that is totally inappropriate? Like the more mature jokes snuck in just for parents during animated movies, or the actual terrifying lessons hidden in some fairy tales. Well, that kind of hitting meaning exists in nursery rhymes too. Not even goofy little easy to remember tunes are safe from the darkness. Maybe that's just human nature. To deal with real difficult issues, we hide them in more easily palatable things. Or maybe I'm just reading too deep into this. It wouldn't be the first time. Hello horror heads, and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 nursery rhymes that are darker than you thought. For more historic haunts and whatnot, make sure to check out our top 5 scary history playlist right here. Cool, let's get going. Coming in at number 5, we've got It's Raining, It's Pouring. The old man is snoring. He bumped his head on the way to bed and didn't get up in the morning. Think about that for a moment. It's a dreary, dismal day full of rain. An old man has experienced head trauma on his way to bed. His egg has been scrambled, his dome has been dented, and now he's asleep. Such a deep sleep, in fact, that he does not get up the next day. We should be worried about this guy. He's not in a good way. Like, he's probably got a concussion. And if you ever had one of those, you'll know that recovery does not come quick or easy. But no, we keep singing along to the tune of a poor dude with possible brain damage. This is the kind of thing that happens in Humpty Dumpty too, but most people aren't ready to talk about that. What if Humpty Dumpty wasn't a mythical Eggman? What if he was just a normal dude that literally dashed his brains on the rocks? Like the king's horses and men came through and tried to piece the little bits of skull back together? I know we got a little off topic here, but seriously, why are a bunch of cutesy songs about head trauma so popular? I don't know, I just can't see one getting super big today. Well, I guess Baby Shark topped the charts, and that has an implicit shark attack, which is interesting, but let's move on before I start writing a thesis on this. Right. Coming in at number 4, we've got Pop Goes the Weasel. There are a few different versions of this song, but the original seems to come from 19th century England. Half a pound of tuppenny rice, half a pound of treacle. That's the way the money goes. Pop goes the weasel. A lot of folks based in North America might be familiar with the animal-based version involving a cobbler, a monkey, or a weasel, maybe even a chicken coop and a possum. Mulberries made their way into there at some point too. But all of the animal antics are goofy cover-ups compared to the subject matter of the OG. See, the popping of a weasel doesn't actually have anything to do with a live weasel. No, it seems that Pop Goes the Weasel is indeed a slang phrase for selling your coat, which in the wintertime can be a deadly venture, but during the 1800s may have been necessary to pay for other life essentials. So instead of being a fun song about creatures chasing each other, it becomes a tune about poor folks having to pawn their last defense against the cold in order to purchase basic necessities. Think about it, half a pound of tuppenny rice, half a pound of treacle. These were staple foods back then, however meager, but that's the way the money goes apparently. Better hawk my coat so my family can eat. Additional verses toss in details like visiting a famous bar known as the Eagle, and if this is going the way I think it is, it looks like somebody's got a bit of a drinking problem and needs to give up their jacket to keep going. Tragic in more ways than one. Coming in at number 3, we've got Ring Around the Rosie, a pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Now, depending on where you are, the lyrics might be a little different. Some replace ashes with achoo, kind of like you're sneezing, but both versions have some terrible associations with the plague. Yep, the Black Death, baby. After the Second World War, it seems as though a well-established explanation popped up for the nursery rhyme. The tune tells the tale of a society racked with disease. Get this, a rosy rash was a sign of someone catching the plague, so ring around the rosy. And you got a pocket full of posies, right? Well, the plague brought with it a terrible stink, and a lot of folks felt that if they smelled good, they could avoid the illness. So people would bring posies, either meaning bunches of herbs or the flowers, around with them to ward off the smell and therefore the virus. If you were sneezing or coughing, you know, achoo, achoo, you were thought to be experiencing some other final fatal symptom. Then, of course, we all fall down, and what could that mean? Death. Death for everyone. I mentioned multiple versions above, with the other iteration replacing achoo with ashes, right? Well, ashes also aren't that great. They're associated with cremation, or the cleansing power of fire. If someone was infected with the plague, sometimes people would burn them to prevent the spread, or they might even burn their whole house down. So next time you hear Ring Around the Rosie, try not to associate it with plague and inferno, okay? Coming in at number 2, we've got Jack and Jill. Went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. I mean, it's a fun tune and all, but it's pretty obvious that this is about two people losing their balance while retrieving water and getting really hurt. Like Jack broke his crown, right? I doubt a princeling would be out filling buckets, so we can discount the possibility of his jewel-encrusted headwear snapping in two. No, I think Jack broke the crown of his head, like his skull. More nursery rhyme head trauma, as if Humpty Dumpty and the old man weren't enough. So Jack, attempting to bring water back to the house, now has debilitating head trauma, and Jill fell down after him too. And she didn't just slide to the bottom either, she tumbled. That's a very descriptive word, don't you think? Makes me imagine her going ass over tea kettle and racking up plenty of scrapes and bruises along the way. So both of our heroes are now lying in crumpled heaps at the bottom of this hill. Jack may well never be the same, and Jill will at least be walking funny for a while. My word. If you read a little further, there are additional verses too. They further illustrate the head injury aspect. Up Jack got and home did trot as fast as he could caper, went to bed to mend his head with vinegar and brown paper. Jill came in and she did grin to see his paper plaster. Mother vexed did whip her next for causing Jack's disaster. So Jack goes home and with little first aid knowledge plasters up his head. And then their mom whips them both for being injured. Life was rough back in the day, huh? And finally at number 1, we've got Peter Pumpkin Eater. Had a wife but couldn't keep her. He put her in a pumpkin shell and there he kept her very well. This might conjure up a silly little image of a woman living in a giant hollowed out pumpkin. There are even illustrations of just that. Oh, that silly wife, she keeps running around. Well, it's likely that this tune has a much uglier origin. Think about what it means when it says had a wife but couldn't keep her. It doesn't mean that she keeps like disappearing into the woods. It smacks of adultery, doesn't it? This pumpkin eating man discovers his wife has been fooling around on him. So what does he do? He murders her and he hides the remains in a hollowed out pumpkin. Of course, he'll keep it very well because if anyone were to discover this horrible person pumpkin dumpling, he'd be drawn and quartered. And that's only his first wife too. Peter went out and got him another wife after the first was dealt with. This one turns out a little better though. At first he doesn't love her, but after learning to read and spell, he manages to love her very well. I mean, sure, an education might help you understand other people a little better, but will it cure this man's murderous tendencies and his weird pumpkin fixation? Probably not. So, did I successfully ruin your childhood through these late realizations? Hopefully I didn't inflict too much damage. Nursery rhymes are still polished enough to be sung in, well, nurseries, so I think we'll all be fine at the end of the day. What did you think of the list? Did you know about the darkness hiding behind the rhymes? What is the darkest nursery rhyme you can think of? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more indignant ones. Me top 5 fairy tale monsters from horror movies. Demon Heart 13 says, I found out about the real versions of fairy tales around the age of 10 when I discovered my love of storytelling. I remember an English assignment about making a fairy tale and looking up the real versions. This is not what my teacher intended. I only remember this because I remember the teacher being rather upset that my 4-paragraph story ended with a princess drowning a cat, a witch in disguise. I don't remember the whole thing, but the witch wanted the crown, I think, and the princess said it was in a bag, and then when the cat jumped in, she closed it and threw it in the ocean, which is all I remember. The beginning was forgettable, I guess, but I was 10, maybe 11, so I'll give myself a pass. Holy smokes, that is definitely a classic fairy tale ending, like dark and death-filled. Good work. Tamsin says, my grandma used to read grim fairy tales to us. My favorite was always, the goblins are gonna get you if you don't watch out. And I bet you're still watching out to this day. You cannot shake grandma wisdom. Zeely H says, I feel like Guillermo del Toro could bring any fairy tale to life with a dark twist. The Jim Henson Company also has potential for that if you've seen their Labyrinth or Dark Crystal franchises. They even did a series called The Storyteller that retells fairy tales with some of their original dark elements. Correct on all counts. Now, when is the Dark Crystal Season 2 coming out? And Satan's Wife says, ooh, hell yeah. Isn't you saying hell yeah kind of like me saying earth yeah? Like, if you're Satan's wife, hell should be pretty standard fare at this point. And that's all the time we have for today. Before I do a gainer off the diving board of an empty pool, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more raucous rhyming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Maybe, avoid the, I doubt a royal or scrapes and boozes. Up Jack.